Hey everybody, I'm Jeff Gluck from SBNation.com. Welcome back to AmpUp88.com. We missed you guys last week. I don't know if you missed us or not, but we missed you. So thanks for coming back. Just a reminder, AmpUp88.com is where you come up every week to amp up for the race. And there's some cool things about the site. One is, Marshall, I don't know if you know this, but Dale Jr. has signed something that they give away every single day on the site. So they can go on the site and they have a contest, sweepstakes every day, and you can win something that Dale Jr. signed.
That's very cool.
So I always like to talk about that first. There's also the Off the Track video series, and this week it's Lance McGrew talking about Indy, obviously a big race. And then TJ Majors, the spotter, has his Twitter feed on there, so you can follow that. And obviously we have these chats. Next week it's going to be Jason Dalrymple. He's the catch cam man for the 88 team, and that'll be at 12:30 next Wednesday, July 28th. But right now, this is Marshall Carlson. Marshall, thank you very much for joining us. He's the general manager of Hendrick Motorsports. So, Junior Nation, ask your questions, and I will relay them to him. Just looking at some of the first ones we've gotten. Marshall, Dale Jr. Fan 50 is wondering, can you just tell us what are some of your day-to-day duties as general manager here at Hendrick?
Well, that's a good question. Every day is a little bit different, Jeff, but for the most part, really, my job is to make sure our folks have the resources they need to go out and win and compete successfully. And so my role is really to support the racers, some of the people that you've met here before on the site, and of course Dale Jr. and his team, and whether they need technology or people, funding for a new initiative. I kind of help get those pieces together with the rest of the group here at Hendrick Motorsports and get them what they need to go out and win.
Okay. Let's see. What are you guys wanting to know? Let's see. Here's a good one. This is a tough one, though. Sun VGG wants to know, Marshall, does four-time Jimmy Johnson have a bigger budget with 3 question marks? He wants to know very badly, I guess. Does he have a bigger budget than everybody else?
No, absolutely not. The way we operate here, and that's a great question, and we get that a lot. The way we operate here is we put everything together, all the resources that we can pull together, the people, the funding, parts, materials, everything, and those are shared equally among the 4 cup teams. And really that's kind of the only way we know how to operate. So that each driver, each crewman, each crew chief, each person that participates here, has an equal opportunity to go out and compete and succeed. So that's the way we do it, and seems to work well. Rick Hendrick really put that kind of principle together as the organization became one of the first multi-car teams on the circuit.
Mm-hmm. Race Fan 12 is kind of wondering about your background. Where did you work before you came to Hendrick, if you could fill people in that may not know about your history?
Good question. Yeah, I started, actually had an internship here at Hendrick Motorsports when I was in college, and I was cleaning the shop, cleaning the chassis shop, helping sweep and clean up, during the day from the guys that are building the cars. And during that summer, I got to know the crew chief of our truck racing team that was just launching at that time. And so that team was kind of putting itself together, getting ready for the, I think it was going to launch in the 2nd season of the truck series. And so that summer I got to know the team, spent some time with them, was able to kind of hang out in the shop and help a little bit. Went back to finish school, and General Motors had provided some resources to the truck teams that were launching to be able to have testing capabilities and some equipment to be able to test with, and they needed a technician to do that. So I was able to get that. I got that opportunity from the crew chief of the truck team, and traveled a couple years with the truck team, and then kind of worked in some other areas here. But that's how I got my start, and feel real fortunate to be able to have been exposed to a place like this, and to a sport that I think we all love a lot here, certainly everyone on this website.
Well, along those same lines, M. Schechter24 is wondering, what was your most memorable moment when you worked for Jack Sprague and the truck team?
First championship. Absolutely one of the most memorable moments. Anytime all of us, or most of us, have at some point been involved with, a competition and winning, whether that's in school or racing, art, science, whatever it is, and that feeling you get is pretty incredible. The camaraderie that I have with my teammates, Jack and the whole crew, to be able to go out for a whole year and put a program together that was strong enough to win the points was really significant. There's another moment I remember too, a real memorable moment. We were at Watkins Glen racing, which is a road course up in New York, and we were running for the championship that year against Ron Hornaday and his team. And I think Sprague and Hornaday were really tough competitors and raced each other very hard on the track, but we also were friendly with the team and all knew each other. And I think a tire let loose during practice. Something happened to our truck, and we just demolished it. I mean, it was gone. And I remember we were unloading the backup, and Hornaday's team came over and helped us unload and get ready to go racing. Taking all the parts off the other, the truck we'd wrecked, helping us prep everything, get it ready to go. So that was a neat moment too. You don't see that a lot in the Cup Series because I think the competition level is just a whole lot more intense. But in the Truck Series, that's a neat memory I have of kind of how racers help each other.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, since this is Junior Nation, we're getting a lot of questions about Dale Jr. and the 88 team, and one of those from Dale Jr. Fan 50 is, what grade would you give the 88 team at this point in the season?
Yeah, I'd say we're a B. Until we start being able to run and compete for wins every week, that's when we'd start moving in A range. We are moving that direction. Definitely a lot of improvement over the course of the season. Really proud of Lance and Dale and the whole team, the consistency that they've brought to the program now. But just like everyone that's on this site, everyone here wants that team to be going out and knocking wins down regularly. And that's what we're capable of. I mean, that's what the expectations are that we have on ourselves. That's Dale's expectation for himself and the team. I know it's Lance's too. And so that's when we're going to get, that's when we're going to be a whole lot more satisfied that we're meeting our own expectations when we're able to go out and knock wins down regularly. But we're moving in that direction. I think you can look over the last 6-8 races and really see that progression. We track a statistic called average running position, which shows during the course of the entire race where each of the cars is running on the track. So it's not just finishing position, but how you've been racing, and that's been very, very strong for the 88 team, particularly here in the second half of the season to date. Real proud of them.
I'm not totally sure what this question means, but I'll ask it anyway because I'm kind of interested in your answer. Dances with Kat, who, it's a strange name, but she asks a question every single week. She's a very loyal Dale Jr. fan, I think.
Well, thanks for being on.
She says, would you say HMS is a crew chief led company?
Absolutely. In fact, we do say that a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, we say HMS is a crew chief led company. At the end of the day, the driver and the crew chief are really the tip of the spear, and so those two people, the whole rest of the organization, everything we do here needs to be aligned behind them, and bringing all of the expertise and resources that we can to bear on supporting them, and you can literally build the whole organization back off of that pairing, and everything needs to line up behind them. So when you look at the organizational side, we really rely on the crew chiefs to call the shots. Whether they need some assistance with a certain part of the car, more aerodynamic development, more chassis development, on down to things even as simple as is the travel working appropriately? Is it taking care of the people the way it needs to? And so that group, those 4 crew chiefs, and then the leadership from all of the competition groups, they meet every week, and I think that those crew chiefs would probably tell you the same thing, that it's a crew chief led company. I'm not going to say that if one of them says, hey, I think we ought to do this, then there's going to be some discussion about it. But whenever there's alignment, those 4 saying this is the way we need to be going with our company right now, that's exactly what's going to happen. And So those guys have a tremendous amount of responsibility, but they also have a tremendous amount of heft in the decision-making process and autonomy too. So real proud of the crew chiefs we've got. They work incredibly well together. 4 of the sharpest folks I've ever met, great leaders, and so that's a great question. We actually do say that. We feel it is a crew chief-led company.
Speaking of that, and this is another question from Dale Jr. Fan 50, so he or she must be asking good questions today. How would you go about making the 88 and 5 teams equally competitive as the 24 and 88?
Well, we've done that. I mean, that's what we try to do constantly, and so we've made some changes over the off season with some people sharing resources across the 5 and 88, across the 24, 48, and the 5, 88. And I think that's what we're seeing on the track today is the result of a lot of that sharing and work that's been put behind getting everything we can aligned on that 88 car. The 5 was incredibly competitive last season, has had a good season to date, not quite like we were last year. It's interesting, I read a piece 2 weeks ago, and this person was doing an analysis of the 5 team and the 88 team, and if you look other than the wins on the 5 car, as far as running position and finishing position, starting position, that team and the 88 team's increased and improved a ton, and the 5 team is actually better year to date than they were last year.
Really?
Just hadn't knocked the wins down, and so sometimes you can't just look at the finish. The finish is what matters. That's what dictates the points and the wins. But finish alone is not always the best indicator of how a team's running. And so a lot of the more in-depth things that we look at, we're extremely optimistic about the 5 and 88 this season. And I think both those teams are going to make the chase. Both those teams are going to win. And I think they're going to make a run for the championship. And that's going to be really neat to see.
We're getting a ton of questions now. You guys are asking some good ones, it looks like. Sim South 88 is wondering, and I hear this question kind of a lot. I'm not sure fans get the crew chief driver relationship to the team. She says, if HMS is such a team, why don't you rotate crew chiefs?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And we have done, over the course of the history of the organization, we have made some changes back and forth over time. Really, the key there is that the crew chief is responsible for taking all of the resources that we've got here at Hendrick Motorsports, the chassis, the engineering, aerodynamics, all those things that are in common among the 4 teams, and tuning that and optimizing it for their specific driver. So Lance McGrew wakes up in the morning and goes to bed at night thinking about how to make the car best for Dale Earnhardt Jr. And as they work together over time, those two get to know each other. Obviously, people communicate in different ways. They go back and continue in different types of tracks and go the same tracks over again. And so Lance, over time, continues to kind of build his repertoire of understanding of how to tune what we have here for for Dale Jr. I think that that is, if we need to make changes, one of the first things you look at is the internal candidates. And so I think changing crew chiefs from team to team is something that is always on the table. But unless something's broken, you don't want to make that change. For example, we've got some incredible combinations here. If you listen to these folks on the radio, watch how they work together. These are pairings that are working real well today.
Mm-hmm. The Pool Boys is wanting to know about Dale Jr.'s fitness, I guess. He says, since it's the Pool Boys, it could be multiple guys. I don't know.
And
they're all just
boys,
sitting
they're
around.
Probably pretty fit if they're getting out of the pool all the time.
Right, so they extra want to know this question. Is Junior still doing the eating well and workout thing like the other HMS drivers do? Do you know that?
Yeah, Dale Jr. is doing that. We've got a trainer that's working with him. And I think it's mostly cardio-based training, some resistance training. A lot of the training staff here at Motorsports likes to do kind of what they call high intensity training. So this is using resistance training as a form of cardio, kind of circuit training, and that's the type of training that Dale Jr. has been involved with and is involved with today. You can look at him and tell he's a fit guy, and I'm proud to say that all our drivers are involved in those types of programs. Some of them are really into their eating and what they eat and don't eat more than others. I don't know exactly about Dale's diet, but I do know from the fitness perspective, he is focused on that, just like all of the other drivers.
Well, Marshall, we're already halfway through the chat. If you can believe that's going kind of fast. But keep your questions coming. This is Marshall Carlson. He's the general manager of Hendrick Motorsports, so he's happy to answer all the questions that you guys have here on ampup88.com. Let's see what else we got. Here's another one. This is kind of the $1 million, billion dollar, bazillion dollar question, I guess, from Dallas Junebug. What's it going to take to make the 88 team an A team? You said they were B earlier.
I think that it's consistent wins. I mean, in my mind, that's where you make that transition. The team's already shown that it's a team that's capable of making it into the chase. I think they're going to make it into the chase. But the difference between kind of, in my mind at least, a B team and an A team is the ability to consistently knock wins down. And that is, there are not many teams that can do that, frankly, on the circuit. And that kind of comes and goes with a lot of teams. The 88 team and Dale Jr. clearly have the skill and the ability to do that. You know, that he wouldn't have been here, and we wouldn't have wanted him racing this car, and he wouldn't want to be in this car if that wasn't the goal and that wasn't exactly what we're trying to do. We have all the tools to do that. To me, that is the mark of an A team, to be able to consistently compete for wins, and that our 88 team can do that, and they're moving in that direction. I'm very excited about seeing how the second half of this year shakes out, and I think it's gonna. I think they've got some really good things coming down the pipe.
All right. Brandon Barber has a question, and he says, "What is your #1 priority at HMS to help prepare for a race week?" And I guess going into it, what are you most looking at, most focused on?
For me, with regard to a specific race weekend, you know, I obviously don't make decisions about how to make the cars faster or how you know, anything to do with the technology. On the race weekends, what I'm focused on is our fan interactions and our sponsor partners, making sure that we've got the right things going to support the broadcast partners. We try to be really good with the broadcast partners about providing our folks, providing access, providing information with the media, with our sponsor partners. You know, if, for example, AMP's got the AMP Energy 500 coming up in October at Talladega. That's going to be a huge weekend for our whole company. A lot of things that we'll want to do to put into making that a real big hit weekend for all the people that are there at Talladega enjoying the race. And so that's my personal focus, probably from weekend to weekend, is more on those types of things.
Well, speaking of AMP, Sun VGG was wondering, when will we see the orange AMP car again? Is there any chance that we'll see that back on the track this year?
You know, I love that car, by the way. I think it was really cool, and the product is great. That was a fun deal earlier this year. I hear it may be coming back out for the AMP Energy 500 down at Talladega in October. That's Halloween, by the way. So
right.
It'd be kind of cool to have an orange car.
For sure.
Could be really special. And crazy things happen at Talladega, and crazy things happen at Halloween. So I think that's going to be, AMP Energy 500 is going to be pretty cool this year. And if they brought the orange car, I think that'd be really hot.
Well, along those lines, we have a question here about how much negotiating do you do with sponsors when it comes to the paint scheme? Is that something where they come to you and they say, hey, we want to do this, or how does that work? I mean, when you sit down with somebody, how does that all work?
Well, the paint schemes are really, the sponsors normally have a really good idea of what they want to try to get across with their car. And so we support that. I wouldn't say that there's a lot of negotiating going on. We want them to get everything they can out of the program. So, you know, they have ideas about what they want to do. We have an in-house graphics department. A lot of times what we do have to do is kind of, maybe an artistic concept will come up with one of the sponsors, but we know how it works on a car, you know, because it is always different. You're getting on the curves and the day and night and the tracks and so forth, how the difference between a night race, a day race, the difference between being on a concrete track versus an asphalt track. So we have some folks here who can help kind of decipher that and massage it. But when they've got a neat idea for a cool paint scheme, we think that's a fun part of the sport. So we try to support them.
T. Scott 48, who, by the way, I met her at the tweet up that you were at.
Yeah,
here
down
at the museum. Yep.
Yeah.
I recognize that name. Where do you see the state of the sport? What do you see the state of the sport as being, and what changes, if any, would you like to see?
You know, I think that there's some real positive things that have happened this year. One of those is those consistent start times. I mean, that has got to be one of the best decisions I think that NASCAR's made. And you know, the other thing that's going on that's really neat is they're listening to the fans a lot more now than maybe years gone by. And so the things like the double file restart, the consistent start times, my understanding is, for example, with the consistent start times, the research shows that that isn't the right decision to make for viewership, having it that early in the day. But NASCAR fans were telling them, you know, that's what we want. That's really how we want it. So that's how they did it. And, you know, I say kudos to them. That's really cool. I think that we need to keep thinking about ways for the fans, particularly at track, to have the best experiences possible. I think that's probably, if there's a forward look on some things that I think that as a sport we can work together and figure out, it's that at-track experience for the fans attending. How can we get them closer to the action? There have been some innovative ideas you've seen at some of the tracks. I think the sky's the limit. I think there's so much more that we can do too if we work together between NASCAR, the tracks, and the teams. I think that there's some neat, and there's some ideas actually in the hopper right now. So that's kind of where I would focus a lot of effort.
Okay. This guy, NASCAR fan or girl, I don't want to shortchange you if you're a girl, NASCAR fan 838 is putting you on the spot about Indy and says, what is your grade at the Brickyard, maybe your expected grade, and do you think you're going to win the Brickyard 400 straight up?
Yes, I think that Dale Jr. is going to win the Brickyard 400. And this, you heard it here, maybe you didn't hear it here first, but you heard it here today at least. I actually talked with Lance McGrew yesterday after their technology meeting, and a lot of positive energy, a lot of excitement about the Brickyard 400 this year. And Dale is just such a smart racer. I mean, he is like a master chess player on the track, and that's kind of what it takes there. It's one of those. That's a thinking driver's race. You're not just going to muscle a car into victory lane at that track, and Dale is so good at that. I think that's my prediction. Grade A.
If that comes true, I think you're going to have to come back every week and make some sort of prediction.
Okay.
You know, continue this streak, because that would be something if you called it.
Well, that's what I think.
You'd be like the Babe Ruth of NASCAR team general managers.
Okay.
Jay Palm Jr. wants to know, how far do you plan ahead, and are you working on next year or beyond already?
We're actually, believe it or not, we're working on next year and 2012 already with regard to sponsors and all those types of things. And you've got to anymore today. I mean, these programs, this is a big undertaking, not just from the team and racing and all, but from our partners like AMP. When they're putting a program together like this, they've got to go get all the alignment from all of their partners, their sales partners, figure the things out with the paint schemes and the branding. And so we really, usually the sport from a business side is working at least 12 months out to try to figure things out in advance.
One thing recently that sounded kind of complicated from all the behind-the-scenes stuff was the number 3 car Wrangler deal that was put with all these different people helping out, and Sun VGG was wondering, did you have any role in that, help in any way for the 3 Wrangler deal to all come together?
Well, we did. We supported that just like we're a partner and support Junior Motorsports, Dale Jr.'s race team over there, and Rick's part owner of the organization. And so we produce their engines and their cars. And we did that in this case too. With regard to working with Wrangler and and the 3 and all those things. We weren't really involved in that part of it. I know that was done over at Junior Motorsports, but we did. We built the engine, and we're proud of that because he actually commented after that win that that was one of the strongest, cars that he'd raced in that series. So that made our engine shop actually feel really proud, and Dale actually sent kind of some personal thanks and congratulations on to the engine folks here. So that was pretty cool.
Cool. M. Schechter 24 is wondering about we know about your racing background. How about your actual driving background? Have you ever driven anything, any sort of go-karts, midgets, any late models?
I have not. I recreationally like driving, driving off-road motorcycles and ATVs, but no racing for me whatsoever. I think that would not be good for my health or anyone else on the track. So.
Have you gotten any tips from Jimmy on the off-road stuff at all?
Jimmy is so far beyond where I could ever be. I mean, I've rode, off-road bikes for years, and a few years ago I went down to a track. He and Chad had kind of gone out just to kick around a little bit, and there's this humongous tabletop jump, probably 50 feet long, and Jimmy is just, totally splayed out in the air with this bike, kicking the back tire out, sideways, landing it perfectly, and I'm just, I could never do anything like that.
Did that worry you as a general manager, seeing the 4-time, the future flash before your eyes?
It was so cool, and it was so smooth that it actually didn't worry me because he was in such control. You could tell. He's an expert. It's like watching these guys in these cars. I've ridden in the stock cars at these little experiences and stuff. But then to watch 40 of them, 12 inches from one another, dicing it up for 3 hours, it just blows your mind.
Yeah.
So, but that's pretty cool.
Foxy Coxy is wondering, do you have a favorite sport besides racing?
I'm North Carolinian, and I went to UNC Chapel Hill, so I love watching college basketball. But our sport runs for so long during the season, and there's so much going on week to week that I kind of get my fill following racing, and I do like watching some other types of racing on occasion, but really from an avid following, I'd say it's NASCAR for me, and really don't kind of follow a whole lot of other sports.
Let's see. I think we might have time for one more. Do we have time for one more? Okay. Sun VGG, a lot of good questions from that person too today. How often do you get to meet with Junior? Do you get to talk to him every week at the track, or how does that interaction between you guys work?
We, sometimes that's a great question. Obviously, whenever we see each other at track, speak and say hello, but sometimes that's not the best environment kind of for them to give me pointers on what I could be doing better or what I could be providing them. So a lot of times it's an email or a phone call during the week with one of the drivers talking about some things they need, ideas they have. Mostly that's probably the kind of the constructive type of conversation. On the weekend, I really try to stay out of their way. They've got a lot of pressure on them, let them kind of do their job.
Cool. Well, thank you, Marshall, for coming.
Jeff.
Appreciate
Enjoyed
it.
Yeah.
And thank you guys, Junior Nation, for all the great questions. We enjoyed this one. Be sure to come back to Amp Up the 88 next week. Jason Dalrymple, who's the 88 team catch cam man, is going to be here. That's 12:30 p.m. just next Wednesday, so come back for that. And if you have any tips that we could ask Jason, feel free to send in your question.
If Jason fits on this set, I'll be surprised. He's one of the biggest human beings I've ever met, by the way.
Okay.
But he's so cool. Jason's great, has a ton of history in this company. Really has been in the chassis shop, in the body shop, in the team, on the pit crew. Jason is a real jack of all trades, super person, but I think we're going to need to get a bigger camera lens or something. He's a big
You guys
guy.
are going to have to be a little farther back next week so we can all fit in. Anyway, that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us on ampupthe88.com, where you guys come up to amp up before the race each week. See you next week.